Alright, we're going to start with Module 2, Lesson 4, and Module 2, Lesson 4 is a lot about reflection and the properties of reflection. So, we're going to look at this example, okay, right here. Okay, we have a line Q, or a line, it has point Q on it, and we have point A over on the left and point P on the right. And what we're going to do is we're just going to use that line as our line of reflection. Okay, and again we're going to use the transparency, or sorry, sheet protector. I keep calling it transparency. Okay, and this is how you do a reflection. Okay, so I'm going to draw my line of reflection. Every time you have a reflection, you will have a line of reflection. Okay, that's how you make a reflection. You have to have a line of reflection. I have point Q, I'm going to do it like this because it's on the line. Point P is over here, and A is over here. Now, so you can visually see what's going to happen. Okay, I'm going to show you. So you're going to take this, and you're literally going to flip or turn the paper over and line your line up back like this. So this is what it would look like, okay? But when you do this, you turn it over, you line up your line, and then you would mark those points. But we don't mark from the top. You have to take your transparency or your sheet protector and put it underneath, and we mark from the bottom. So we line up our line as best as we can. Okay. We mark our point. This becomes P prime because P goes over the line of reflection. A also goes over the line of reflection to right here. A prime. And Q is there, but it does not move. It stays right there, and we just rename it Q prime. Now, it doesn't move because it is actually on the line of reflection. So if a point or a line is on the line of reflection, it doesn't actually move. We just rename it. Okay? The points or the shapes or the figures that are not on the line go to the opposite side of the line of reflection. So P was on the left, or sorry, on the right, and moved to the left. A was on the left and moved to the right. Okay, and now we're going to go into your packet and we're going to do some of these examples or these exercises together. So we're going to start with this here, and it says reflect triangle ABC and figure D across line L. Label the reflected images. Now, you need to make sure that you're actually labeling the images, okay? This is line L. It didn't copy very well. That's an L. A, B, and C, and this is figure D. Okay, so what you're going to do, I'm going to push this over here. We're going to hold this transparency down, and you're going to trace everything on this page. So you're going to trace line L, and we want to be as precise as possible. We're going to trace figure D, and I'm going to trace on the inside of them so that when I draw them, I draw the outside shape so it's exactly the same size. There's that one. I have to do this one. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're literally going to flip it over. So you flip it over like this. So if you were to see this, you line up your line of reflection as best you can. And then you would have a triangle now on the right and figure D on the left. Now we don't trace it here. You have to put it underneath the paper and you have to trace it. Okay? So we put it underneath the paper like this. You line up that line as best as you can. So you want to be as accurate as possible. And then you're going to trace the shape. Now, when I'm tracing, okay, because of how I drew it, I'm tracing the outside of the figure because I made sure that my lines that I drew were inside of the lines of the shape. So B is right here. It, quote unquote, didn't move, but we have to relabel it B prime. A was here, so this point over here becomes A prime. C was here, so the point over here becomes C prime. Okay, now we have to do figure D. Figure D is over here. Okay, and I'm going to trace the edge of it. And this becomes figure D prime. Okay, and then on number 2 it says which figure or figures were not moved to a new location under on the plane under this transformation. The only thing that didn't move here was point B. We're not really worried about the line of reflection. We're worried about the figures or the points. The only thing that didn't move was B. Okay, so down here on number 2, well, we're going to do both. Okay, point B and line L were not moved to a new location under this reflection. Okay? And then now I'm going to take this away and we're going to look at some examples here. So we have here a reflection. This was our original because it's S and reflected over line L, and this became S prime. So it just moved over the line. Same thing here. We had T. It was reflected over the line and became T prime. Okay, so essentially they're the same distance from the line of reflection on both sides. Okay, now, so that is vertically. Now let's look at something horizontally. So now we're looking at a line, a horizontal line. This is line L. Here's our original figure, figure T, and when we reflect it, it goes from the top to the bottom. Okay, and the distance from this point to the line is the same distance as this point to the line. Okay, so you got to make sure it's the same and that you're using your transparency and you're putting it underneath your paper. That is how you do transformation. So you got to trace it, put it, line it up underneath your paper, and then trace what you originally traced. Okay, so now we're going to go back to your packet and we're going to do a few more examples together. Okay, so we're going to start here with number 3. Okay, it says reflect the image across line L, label the reflected images. Okay, so again, we're going to do this together. You may want to, because of the staple and having to put it underneath, you may want to take it apart. Okay, that's fine, just as long as you don't lose it. Okay, I'm going to do it this way. Okay, so I'm going to do it very far over to the edge. I'm going to trace my line of reflection right here. And try to do it as straight as possible. I'm going to trace the angle. Whoa. I'm going to trace the angle. And I trace kind of on the inside so that I draw on the outside is exactly where it was originally. Okay, this one is going to be harder. I'm going to draw underneath it, and then I'm going to trace on the outside because there's something on the inside of it. Okay, now when we reflect over this, we whoop, flip it over, and it goes to the other side of the line. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it underneath and retrace it. Okay. Okay. I think I'm lined up pretty good. So now I'm going to do the circle first because that one is going to be a little bit more difficult. I'm going to trace, okay, around on the inside. I'm going to trace above the line. Okay, I is closest, so this point is I prime. This point is J prime. Okay, so then now I'm going to move over here and I'm going to do my angle. My nails are so close. Okay, so again I'm going to trace on the outside. This is A prime, this is B prime, and this is C prime. And then in here, it's still 66 degrees. Okay, so now we're going to move down and answer the questions below. Okay, so the first question says, use a protractor to measure the reflected angle ABC. What do you notice? If you were to measure this, okay, you're going to line up the middle of your protractor with the bottom. You got to line it up, make sure it lines up all the way out to 0. Then you would extend this, and it would be pretty close to 66 degrees. So, angle A prime, B prime, C prime is the same measure as angle ABC. Use a ruler to measure the length of IJ and the length of the image of IJ and the reflection. What do you notice? So if we measure this, and we're usually going to measure in centimeters, it's a little bit easier to do because our figures are so small. That looks like 1.9, maybe 1.2 centimeters. And then over here, if we measure, we get 1.9, 1.2. Okay, so what we notice here is that the length, oh, I didn't even write that up there so you guys could see it, sorry. The length of segment IJ and the length of segment I prime J prime are, so segment IJ and segment I prime J prime are the same length. Okay, so now let's look at number 5. Okay, so now we have a horizontal line and we're going to reflect figure R and we're going to reflect triangle ABC. Okay, or sorry, EFG. Okay, so just like before, we're going to trace this. Okay, so we're going to trace our entire line of reflection because where the ends are matter because it crosses the line of reflection. So because there is a shape on the line of reflection, the end points of the line of reflection matter. So you have to make sure you trace the entire line. Okay, I'm going to do figure R. I trace on the inside again so that when I draw it I only use the outside edge of the line so they're exactly the same. And then this one, oh, did I move it? Yep, shoot. See, I'm very particular and you have to be very spot on with this. So you gotta be very, very precise and accurate. So you want to make sure that your line doesn't move when you're tracing, just like mine did. Okay. And that you have a plan. Okay, and on this one I'm going to do the outside since the shape is kind of small. And so when I trace it, I'll just draw on the inside of the lines. Either way is fine, but that's just a preference of mine. So then now, because it's horizontal, you're not going to flip your paper from front to back. You're going to flip it from bottom to top. So if you're doing this, you're bringing the bottom over and you're flipping it like this. So then the reason this is important is so that you can line up the end of the line. So if you were to reflect this, this is what it would look like. The triangle would overlap and the semicircle would come down. Okay, so just like this, and this is going to be a little bit difficult for me because I don't think about this, you're going to put it underneath and you're going to trace your shape. Okay, so I just put it flat, move it up here, okay, I'm going to move my lines so that they line up end to end, just like that. Okay, I'm going to trace the outside of figure R prime. You always have to make sure you label it. If you don't label it, you will not get full credit. So make sure you're labeling your figures. And on this one, I'm doing the inside because I drew on the outside. So G went up, and this became G prime. F went down, this is F prime. And E went down, this is E prime. So now we just have a summary real quick, okay? So in here, after looking and doing some of these reflections, we learn the properties, okay? A reflection maps a line to a line, a ray to a ray, a segment to a segment, and an angle to an angle. That means that when you do a reflection, whatever it was originally is what it ends up in the end, okay? The second property is a reflection preserves length of segments. So if your segment was 10 centimeters to begin with, your new segment is 10 centimeters. Okay? And then this last one, a reflection preserves a measure of angles. Okay? So when we reflect something, whatever the original angle it was, like it was 66 degrees, the new angle is also 66 degrees. Okay, and the last thing here is when you reflect something over a line of reflection. Here's our line. We reflected P and got P prime. You guys see that? Okay, they form a 90-degree angle. This point, P, forms a 90-degree angle with the line of reflection. P prime also forms a 90-degree angle with the line of reflection. Another thing that is on here is the distance from O to P, this length right here, is the same distance from O to P prime. And we can note that by using some little tick marks. So the length from O to P has this amount, kind of quote unquote that amount, that length, and the distance from O to P prime has that length as well. So when you see the same number of tick marks, that means that that length is the same amount. Now at the bottom of this there is a little, there's a link. You need to use that link and check out the slider there so you can kind of see another way of a reflection happening.